Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good following morning. This is AMA number 32. 32. Today is October 29th, right at the end of October, almost Halloween, almost Election Day. Today I have two guests, not one, but two guests today, Anna Gulińska and Ishbel Szatrawska. Who are going to talk about the protests going on in Poland. There are massive protests related to the new abortion law that was put in place by the Constitutional Tribunal. And my two guests today are very active, are activists, are very involved in all different issues, left-wing issues, essentially in Krakow, and also part of our Kol Isza project, women's leadership project. So I'm going to bring them both on and talk to them about what's going on today in Poland, as just 500,000 people on the streets yesterday, even with Corona going on. So massive protests. I went yesterday with Kasia to check it out, and it was just, I'd never seen so many people out on the street in Poland. Really something phenomenal to see. So I'm going to talk to them in a few minutes about that, and we'll get their opinion about what's going on in Poland and what this holds for the future of Polish society. Good morning, Anna from Sao Paulo. Hi, Sida. My dad is watching. Hi, Dad. How are you, Dad? Hi, Linda. Boker Tov. Boker Or, Linda. Tova. Good morning, Tova. Good to see you, Tova, Palo Alto. Tova also very involved with a part of our Kol Isza project. So we'll talk a little bit about what the Kol Isza project is, as well as talk to Anna and Ishbel about the current situation going on in Poland. So in terms of what else is going on, let's see, with Corona, much worse. Things continue to deteriorate rapidly in Poland. Today we had 20,000 cases. You'll remember that last week it was a big deal that we hit 10,000 cases. The week before, on Thursday, it was a big deal as we hit the record 6,000 cases. So a country of 40 million, and we have 20,000 cases. For the US, that would be something like 160, 170,000 cases in the United States, which I don't think is a number that we hit. So we're doing, which is these days not something to be proud of, doing worse than the United States. Magda, hello from Krakow. Oh, hi, Rabbi Avi. Oi. Well, vey to you, Rabbi Avi. My vey to your oi. Marcel. Dzień dobry, Marcel in Montreal. Kasia says, hello, my husband. Uh-oh, Kasia. What? Uh-oh. You must have done something wrong. No, I'm kidding. Nice to see you, my wife. Jeffrey Rolat, good morning. It's a little later than usual, 8 a.m. in California, as Poland, by the way, hope it wasn't too inconvenient for all of you. Poland moves the clocks, or Europe moves the clocks earlier than the United States. Actually, in Europe, they're talking about abolishing the daylight savings time, which, to be honest, for me would be fine. I am very happy with it. My idea is that I want there to be as much daylight as possible. I think year-round, it should get dark at 8 p.m. Keep it at 8 p.m. Every month or so, you can adjust it. Keep it for 8 p.m. This whole idea of daylight saving has to do with farmers. When farmers used to be like 10 or 15% of the US economy was farmers. Now maybe it's 1% of the US is farmers. So nothing against farmers. Thank you for feeding us. But I don't know that we need to adjust the entire time zone for 330 million people in the US and 500 million in Europe. Just these things that are not necessarily so relevant these days. So there you are. Now it's only 5 hours to New York. It's usually 6 hours, and 8 hours to California, when it's usually 9. So that's where we are. So Corona, much worse. Restaurants are closed. As of Saturday, there's only takeaway in restaurants. Shops are open, but 10 till 12 is for senior citizens. And after 12, everybody can go. So that's been something that continued. There was a press conference today. We thought they were going to announce any new measures, but they haven't. In terms of what we've been up to at the JCC, we did something really It was really special. Last Friday, a few of us went and delivered packages to our Holocaust survivors, about 20 survivors we visited. It was really very special going and going to their houses and giving them, making sure they could celebrate Shabbat. It meant a lot to them, and I think it really meant even more for us to be able to do that. I've been baking cookies. I have to tell you, if any of you are expert bakers, I have a very good cookie recipe. The taste of the cookie is phenomenal, but they're not really rising. They're staying quite flat, which I prefer a sort of a flatter, as I talked about before, a city bakery type cookie, but they need to rise a little bit. So I don't know, I'm using only baking soda, not baking powder, and I might have to add a little more baking soda or add baking powder to it. So we'll see if any of you have any advice. Saul is saying 8 p.m. would be great. It gets dark at 4:45 next week. Exactly, I can't stand. Too depressing when it gets dark so early. Linda, the daylight savings time is an outdated post-war model to fit the industrialist demands. Farmers were, yeah, exactly. Yes. Sebastian keeps testing the cookies, and I missed an earlier comment. It's hard to sometimes keep up with the comments. Benji, what were you saying? Something about my glasses, I'm sure. Thank you, Benji. If that was a nice comment about my glasses, then thank you. Sharon, hi Sharon, good to see you. Hi in New York. Blessings, thank you very much. Cookies, Ava, yes. So I need some advice about the cookies. They're not rising. The taste is really, the taste is very good, and I'm very critical of everything, but the cookies aren't rise. Save them for Pesach. No, I don't know about that, Benji. Pesach, as we know, Benji, macaroons, not cookies, but they're not rising. So with people that know baking, would you suggest I increase the baking soda or add baking powder or just add more flour? That would be my question, or mess with the temperature of the oven. These are, I think, are the options. So if anybody has any advice, you can jump in and give me some advice. Cookie recipe, please. No, I will not share my cookie recipe, Rabbi Avi. It's not perfect yet. Once my recipe is perfect, I will then share it. But I should tell you, Rabbi Avi, it has lard. Plenty of lard in my cookie recipe, so I don't know if it'll work for you. No, I'm just kidding about the lard, Rabbi Avi. Of course, my cookie recipe is kosher. Very, very kosher, Rabbi Avi. And I will prepare, once my cookie recipe is perfect, I will share the recipe. Anna Panek says, add baking powder. I will try. I'm going to try and make another batch tonight and add baking powder. We will see. In terms of what else is going on, of course, the big news, and not about the election, that's next week, but of course, monitoring that. The big news, of course, is Borat, the new Borat film, which is gift for leader from something of daughter and whatever. So there's going to be a spoiler alert here. I don't know if any of you have seen the Borat film, but I did watch it this past weekend, right when it came out. I'm a big fan of Borat, a big fan of Sacha Baron Cohen. I remember watching it. I had VHS tapes when I lived in Israel when he was on the Channel 4. He had a show on Channel 4 on the British TV when he was just a character, Ali G. I think before the Ali G show came out. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I thought Borat was absolutely phenomenal. Ups and downs, of course. He's taking risks. Some of it is somewhat unwatchable, but there were some scenes in there that were just absolutely really, really hilarious. And I think, Borat holds a mirror up to ourselves in certain ways, as did Ali G. And it makes you uncomfortable. It's difficult to watch, but I think that there's a brilliance there. And Sacha Baron Cohen is such a genius, really. As Benji says, I agree. And not only his comedy, but I think I highly recommend that you guys go out and find online his speech at ADL. He gave the keynote speech for the Anti-Defamation League main conference, the Never Is Now conference, where actually a couple of years ago I was lucky enough to speak in San Francisco. The ADL is doing amazing work. They've been very busy, especially now during with the Trump presidency. ADL has been busier than ever. But Sacha Baron Cohen, who is not an obvious choice, gave the keynote speech during the ADL Never Is Now. I think the conference was also called this year, but his speech is absolutely first rate. One of the better speeches I've seen in a long time. Anna Panek, A Suitable Boy on Netflix. I will check it out. I will make a note to myself. Suitable Boy. By the way, that's what Benji, when Benji is trying to meet women in Israel, that's what he generally introduces himself as. He says, hello, I'm Benji Lovett, a suitable boy. Perhaps he'd like to go out with me. I'm not sure he's having much luck with that. But Benji Lovett, longtime fan of the show, he's gone the road. He's gone the easiest route in terms of meeting women. He has gone and got himself a cute puppy. Benji, if you're still single with a cute puppy, then all is lost for you, Benji. All is lost. But hopefully the puppy will help. No, just teasing. Benji, it comes from a place of love. Sacha Baron Cohen is the Jonathan Ornstein of satire. Why on Sacha Baron Cohen's behalf, he thanks you for that very lovely comparison, Benji. He's honored to be compared. No, I'm just kidding. Sacha Baron Cohen is great, and we'll get him to the JCC one of these days. I promise. 2 people I promise that I will get to the JCC, and plenty of you are watching. You can hold me to this. Sacha Baron Cohen will visit the JDC, and Wonder Woman, not Wonder Woman Kasha Leonardi, Wonder Woman Gal Gadot will visit JCC Krakow. I'm not sure when, but it will happen. I promise. I have 2 guests today, so I want to hurry up and get to them a little bit early. So I'm going to now bring on Anna Gulińska and Ishbel Szatrawska. Some of you might remember Anna from her days at JCC Krakow. She was the director of programming at JCC Krakow. Now she is running chairwoman of a cooperative, Ognivo. They're doing really great work. It's a bookstore, it's a cafe. They're doing lots of really socially engaged, phenomenal work, art and different meetings, really a very, very cool place. And she's involved with different left-wing politics in Krakow and also part of our Kol Isza program. And Ishbel Szatrawska, who is a playwright, who is very involved in Jewish issues for a very long time, helps us out at the JCC with our filming. For those of you who are fans of What's the Parsha Pani Zosha, that is Ishbel Szatrawska. She also works at our very good friend, partner institution, Galicia Jewish Museum, and is doing, and also part of the Kol Isza program. So first of all, welcome to you. I know you guys are very busy with a lot of things. It's great to have you both on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you, and hello, everyone.
Anna, are you coming to us from Ognivo?
Yes, the new place in Podgórze.
New place in Podgórze across the river, and you guys, well, not, I don't know, are you open now with all the shutdowns, or you're just getting ready to open, or you were open and now had to close?
So we are open as much as we can. We are open as a bookstore. Unfortunately, the cafes are closed due to coronavirus. So we didn't have a chance actually to be properly open as the cafe and a place of gatherings and a place of meetings. But we do a lot of things online, and it's still possible to come to buy some books. All the titles are very socially engaged. And yeah, we hope that we will be up to the speed soon.
Excellent. No, it's a great, so Ognivo, when people come to visit Krakow, it's an important place to visit. They're doing a lot of good work there and really flying the flag of socially engaged cooperative institution in Krakow. And but we miss you at the JCC, of course, Anna.
See you too.
So you guys, I want to first, because you're both part of Kol Isza, and I know we have some Kol Isza participants watching, maybe before we talk, I want to really kind of focus on what's going on in Poland. I've never seen a situation like this with such protests since I've been here 20 years. But maybe before that, can you guys talk a little bit about the Kol Isza program?
Sure. It started, I think, Anya will know better, in the beginning of 2019?
18. Yeah.
18 already.
I think already the end of 2018.
Wow.
Yeah, when we started to form the group.
So we have a group in Krakow, and we are cooperating with groups from the San Francisco Bay Area and Israel. There are 3 groups: Israel, Poland, and the US. We are in touch online right now, only online. But we already met last year during the Jewish Cultural Festival in Krakow. First, the groups from Israel and the US came to Poland. Then the groups from both, all these 3 places went to Israel. and we're discussing. We're also reading the Torah and finding some cool pro-female aspects in Jewish tradition, but also discussing and working for more open and more women activities, things that will empower women in our own communities and globally in the Jewish environment. But not only Jewish environment, we also want to have impact on our environments in our hometowns. And yeah, these are some amazing women from different generations. I think our youngest member is, I think, Marciana, and who's 20 something. And our oldest member is, I think, Juana, who might be 60 something. So it's a great group of women, very active women who are active in their communities as well. And we learn from each other, most of all.
I think what's really worth to mention that our Kol Isza Krakow project was to write women's Haggadah for Pesach, and we wrote it, created it together with Bella Schwartzman-Czarnota, very great translator, writer, journalist, and also activist and Yiddish translator. And we managed to organize women's Seder on Zoom, as everything was going on these days. But it was amazing. And I think that it's very accurate today. And we are looking forward to write it down, edit it, and publish for this upcoming Pesach.
No, it's a great project. And I think that we were right on time with Kol Isza. If you think about everything that's going on today in Poland, all of these issues, then a women's leadership group was wow, it's a perfect. What better thing to have started? So I'm very proud of our involvement, and we're going to keep that going. You know, as much, you know, whatever it will look like. And we're still, of course, hoping that we can start traveling again, because we are supposed to go. Our Israel and Krakow still has to go visit Palo Alto. So we're hoping that will happen. I'm sure it will happen. I'm not sure when. So
we're looking forward to it. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Can't wait.
So there are massive, let's get into it. There are massive protests going on all over Poland. The statistics I saw just today, I was reading the news online a few minutes ago. I saw something like about 500,000 people out in the streets, women, not only women, all over in 100 different communities all over Poland. So maybe let's talk a little bit about the background. What was the court ruling? And then what did the court decide? And then what was the situation before in terms of the legality of abortion in Poland?
Ishbel, you want to start?
Yeah.
Or?
I can start. Okay. So before the court ruling, we had a situation of the so-called compromise that was legally introduced in 1993, I think. The problem with this law is that it is in our public discussion, it is called a compromise. But the compromise was made in reality between the politicians and the Catholic Church. The women were not acknowledging the discussion. We had a huge referendum in the 90s for making the abortion law more liberal, sorry. And unfortunately, these voices were not even taken into account. The politicians completely disregarded this fact. The so-called compromise law states that women can have an abortion only in a few cases, in case of rape, incest, or difficult damages and illnesses of the fetus, which can harm either the baby can be born dead or completely disformed, malformed, or it can harm the woman's health and even risk her life. But in reality, this law is not in effect, because there are regions in Poland where the doctors are so much under the influence of the Catholic Church that they refuse of even performing legal abortion, that they can legally perform according to the law. and this makes whole groups, whole communities of women completely disconnected from their basic rights and from what the law guaranteed. And now this law has been stricken by the ruling of the Constitutional Tribunal, which is the highest court in Poland.
Like the Supreme, for us, like the Supreme Court would be in
well,
the
we do have the High Court, but this is more like a tribunal that is, of course, the Constitution is the most important legal act in Poland, and the Constitutional Tribunal decides if law is correct according to the Constitution.
Right.
Theoretically, there's no way of repealing that.
But the law says now, so just because I don't think we exactly mentioned that. So the law before, it was that you could only have an abortion in case of it was a risk of death to the mother, major deformities with the child or with the fetus, not child, or incest or rape. And now they removed the question of deformities to the fetus. So it's only life or death situation for the mother, or rape or incest.
Yes.
Right, and just let me add that this legal abortion, in this case, which was just basically removed, it was already over 90% of abortions that were made legally in Poland. So practically, the law was already one of the most restricted abortion laws in Poland. And now over 90% of the abortions legally cannot be done. So it put us in really bad positions in terms of the legal way to abortion.
One of the most restrictive in Europe. And I think that the numbers are that last year in Poland, there were 1,100 legal abortions in Poland, which you're talking about a country of 40 million people. So the number is, of course, a tiny number of legal abortions. And of that number, I think it was 1,075 were major deformities to the fetus. So as you say, this is something over 95% or something of the cases are now what would be illegal under this law of a law that was already incredibly restrictive.
Absolutely. Plus, practically right now, this law is practically in effect right now. We have the one of the most strict abortion laws, not only in Europe, I would even say in the world, because even in Iran, they have much more liberal rights right now.
Yeah.
So,
right, and if we're talking about the numbers, Jonathan, you mentioned 1,100 legal abortions, and there are estimates that are saying there are about 120,000 abortions made underground illegally in Poland, something between 120,000 and 150,000 a year.
And plus, I think that number wouldn't even necessarily count that, to be honest, we live in a Europe without borders, or maybe during Corona a little bit, but we live in a border, going from Poland to Germany or Poland to Czech Republic or Poland to Slovakia is like going from New York to Connecticut or New Jersey. There are no borders at all. So if you have the money to pay for it and the means to do that, you can go take a day or two off work and go to Germany. There's the ability of going across the border. So laws like this always, of course, affect people that are more, are poorer, right? If you have the money to go somewhere else to do something, in the United States, if they have certain states that have now made it more restrictive, more difficult, then you can go to another state. But the law is always felt more harshly by people that don't have the financial means to go somewhere else.
Absolutely, and this is what is happening. Plus, when you mentioned Czech Republic and Slovakia, it's interesting, I think, for foreign viewers to mention that already in Czech Republic and Slovakia, perhaps also in Germany, I don't know about that, they already have Polish-speaking staff. They're completely prepared for all the women coming into their clinics. So practically, this law puts many women in danger, in a very difficult position, and only, as you said, allows well-to-do women to do it legally and safely.
So considering the small number of abortions that were illegal, you didn't have widespread abortion here in the last years anyway, a year ago, 2 years ago, since communist times when things changed at the end of communism. But so why did the government do it? In other words, you're not removing, if the government says, oh, we're trying to save lives or whatever the government line would be, you don't have a huge amount of abortions going on anyway in this country. A tiny fraction of them are legal to begin with. So why make it even more restrictive? Why do you think they did that?
I think the influence of Catholic Church in Poland, very strong, and the deal with Catholic Church that the current government has. And also, I think that the current government is like to show their moral one and only way of thinking, and to force others to think in that way, like their morality is higher than anyone else's. And it's a lot about mindset and ideas and ideology that is behind this government, that really facts and just thinking in a rational way. It's not rational at all. Saying something that they're above, the others, and also influence of Catholic Church. I think it's very strong.
I would add that, I completely agree with Anna. I would also say that in the recent years, we have a very strong growth of an organization called odbywają, which is a very fundamentalist Catholic organization. It's an international organization based in Brazil, but they have their branches all over the world, in Poland also. And they have many, they're kind of like lobbyists. They have a foundation here that is legally forcing laws that are based on the Catholic laws or the beliefs that are widespread among Catholics, and they want to force that upon our legal system, in fact. But also, I think they were one of the core institutions which backed our politicians signing a treaty. I don't know how it's called in English. I think Geneva Treaty, which is a treaty signed, I think, a few days ago, which definitely opposes abortion and forces that this Christian Catholic view. I think the US also signed it, and I think also Erdogan signed it, which puts us in a pretty shady. It's a pretty shady thing. It's hard to explain, but I don't want to call the names because we already had a court case in which they won because somebody called them an institution financed by the Kremlin, and they won. It was considered illegal to call them like that. So I will refrain from any explicit names of this organization. But it's a complicated story, and it definitely is a powerful organization.
Now, the government has tried to limit abortion rights before. This isn't the first time, and not too long ago, many of us were marching in the czarne protest, and this happened before. They tried from a legislative point of view. Now, this is a little bit different, that they appealed to the Constitutional Court. In other words, because they backed down after seeing the massive protests, which were smaller than these protests, I think. They tried a different tack. Were you surprised that they did this?
No, it was, I think, unfortunately, I wasn't surprised. It was going toward this direction. It started already when the Constitutional Tribunal, the current parliament, with its majority, they illegally basically change the members of the Constitutional Tribunal. So once they did it, it was clear that the Constitutional Tribunal became a tool in their hands and not an independent institution. So some of them people were saying also that they tried to avoid the whole abortion law discussion in the parliament. So they just, wash their hands off and put it, that they let the Constitutional Tribunal to make the decision they wouldn't like to take in the parliament, being afraid of the reactions and protests, because once you have a ruling in the parliament, it has its way, right? First to the Sejm, and then it goes to the Senate and then to the president. So it has different things could have happened on the way, and the Constitutional Tribunal ruling, that's it. You cannot go any higher. There is nothing to appeal to.
Yeah. So I think that what's interesting is that the people out in the streets are not really, all the chants and the posters and the placards. They're not really against the Constitutional Tribunal as much as they're against the ruling party. Right? People just automatically are saying, wait, the ruling party has organized this. As you mentioned, a couple of years ago, they dismissed the previous judges, which was, many of us see that as illegal. I guess it's questionable legality. There
were protests against that as well a couple of years back.
Against that, of course. So in other words, they put their own judges in, and they must have had some desire of what they wanted to happen when they did that. So, but the people see right through that. It's not like people are protesting, hey, Constitutional Tribunal, what are you doing? It's, hey, law and justice, hey, peace. You're the one to do this. But tell me, because you mentioned something interesting, which is that this, there's really no appeal to this. This is the judgment that's essentially the final judgment. So all these protesters out in the street, what do they want and what do they expect to happen? What can change if this is the final word?
I think there's a big discussion among the protesters themselves, but I would say that, the women's strike issued, I think yesterday or perhaps Monday. I'm losing count because of all these protests. The women's strike issued a set of demands, which includes also that the government should be dismissed and new elections should take place. But also there are also many other demands, such as sexual education in schools, accessibility of contraceptives, legal abortion until the 12th week of pregnancy. So all of these issues which were discussed by feminists first in Poland, but later also by the whole left and sometimes even a center part of our politics. So I think they're completely aware of what they're fighting with. And what I am touched by most is that most of these people are completely very young, like high school students, university students, and they are aware what they're fighting for. Because the first, the first protests were very much focusing on the role of the Catholic Church in the Polish society. But right now, I think they're more focusing on the ruling party. And what is interesting and worth to note is that our Vice Prime Minister, Jarosław Kaczyński, who is in fact the leader right now, had a speech in which he kind of tried to direct this whole anger onto the Catholic Church by doing it in a very sneaky way, by telling the people that now we should defend the Catholic faith and defend the churches. Because we will never be Polish again if the churches collapse, if we undermine the role of the Catholic Church. But the people, I think, saw through this because they kind of maybe not lost interest, but put the church aside a little bit. And now, especially in Warsaw, they're most of all protesting near the buildings of our parliament and the private apartments of the politicians from our ruling party.
Mhm. But I mean, in terms, you mentioned something, which is that they are, one of the demands is legal abortion until the 12th week. But the Constitutional Court has just ruled that, you know, that abortion is legal. So even if tomorrow there's a law would pass in the Polish government, it would be declared unconstitutional because the you know, essentially the higher body has just ruled. So I mean, I understand these demands, which are sort of, you know, almost in a perfect world demands. But what are the leadership now? I mean, if you guys, you know, have the answer to this, or at least what do you think? What is the expectation? What are the protesters, or what are the leaders of the protest? What do they want to happen now? In other words, I don't think you even have a system where tomorrow, if it were the government, they could back down. But this isn't exactly the government, it's the Constitutional Court. So they don't have a mechanism saying, uh-oh, people are out on the streets, we better back off and change it. I don't think that's even at this point possible. So what's the game plan moving forward? In other words, are we gonna continue marching and continue protesting until some point? And if so, what is that point? And what's the plan here?
I think it's very difficult to say. There are like protests, and you never really know what the like power of the crowd can do and can change. There are already projects in the parliament to liberalize abortion, to make it legal until 12th week. And but that's sitting already in the parliament since March. The left-wing party suggested that it wasn't discussed; it was like frozen, as we call it. So because it was parliament project, it's sitting in this freezer. So now trying to maybe do something else and do like citizenship project. So if we, I think, manage to have 100,000 signatures under the project of the bill, which will make abortion legal up to 12th week, that has to be discussed in the parliament. You cannot just put it away. So at least it will be this and the whole discussion. And we don't know how strong the pressure of the crowd of the streets will be, and what will happen during this discussion. And of course, the perfect thing would be to change the constitution and change what's written there. And for that, you need the new parliament, you need the new power. And I would also like that that would happen sooner than later. So there are the demands. I think that people already are not fighting to keep this so-called compromise. They're fighting to change the law.
I think so too. And tell me, do you think that the timing, was this cynical timing? Was this done because of Corona? Because the last time women, and not only women, people, you know, led by women, were out on the streets in Poland and protesting about the Constitutional Court and about the abortion issue before. Do you think that they were like, we'll try to do this now because people aren't going to go out on the streets because of Corona?
I would absolutely say so, but I would also say that it was a deliberate attempt of finding a scapegoat for the whole situation that we have in our healthcare system, because the healthcare system practically collapsed. We don't have places in our hospitals. We are facing, to be honest, we are facing the situation Italy was facing in Lombardy in March. The government had half a year to organize support and for the healthcare system, and to school new nurses, for example, which is already a very short time, half a year. But we had half a year to prepare for this crisis, and we did nothing. In March, we had a pretty decent situation here. Right now, it's a very tragic situation here, and I know. I mean, I believe, and I think it's already starting, that the ruling party will definitely blame the protesters for spreading the virus.
And I think I would like to add one thing to that, what you said, Ishbel, that I checked the schedule of the Constitutional Tribunal. They cancelled or postponed many of the sittings, and this one they didn't. They could have done it because it was so easy to predict what that would cause, and they didn't do it. So that's why I think it was deliberate.
I think so. I think so too. You know, people are not, things don't happen. Things don't happen by accident. But until this, I mean, what was the situation? How would you look at the situation of women, women's rights, and move toward moving toward equality on all different fronts in Poland over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years or so? Would you, in certain ways, as an American, as someone who lived in Israel, in certain ways, I think, wow, the situation with women here, in some sense, I find it very sort of progressive in terms of equality, in terms of women in the workplace. And I think Poland is actually pretty good with certain statistics, like maybe salaries, the difference between men's and women's salaries, I think, are not as bad here, let's say, as they are in some places where it's like in the United States. But in some ways, I find also like socially, the expectations women are, certain things women are just expected to do and men are expected to do certain, like, for me, like growing up in New York, that are sort of, as we would say in the United States, like more from the 1950s, like these traditional, traditional things. Like if you walked into somebody's house in Poland, maybe somebody very young, it wouldn't be so surprising, but you walked into somebody's house who was 45 years old and you sat down and the husband said, okay, I'm going to go make dinner, while you sat and spoke with the wife, your head would explode. Yeah. Maybe younger people, not as much the case. Whereas in the United States or some certain circles, at least, that's not so surprising. And that's just maybe one small thing. But how do you see Polish society in terms of, as to women, as to feminists and people that are active in these issues? Has it been generally progressing? Was it progressing until this party came to power? Is it progressing despite this party? Is it moving backwards? How do you see the general issue of women in Polish society today?
I think the situation is progressing despite the party, despite the church. I can even see it among my friends. Okay, one can say that this is not a very good area of observation, because most of my friends come from bigger cities and they're leftist and they're much more liberal. But I can see the difference between my parents, between marriages in my generation and marriages of people younger than I am, or partnerships between people younger than I am. And the younger they are, the more equal they are in their daily routines, in their daily chores at their homes. So as you mentioned, absolutely, we have a pretty low wage gap between men and women compared to other countries, which I think partially is, we inherited it partially from the communist times, which very much pushed the women as workforce into the market. Also because we were completely destroyed during the Second World War, we needed people to work. Yes, but socially we are still pretty much conservative. The church has a pretty big influence on the life of people, but they can't defend it forever. Times change, women change, men change. Young people travel abroad. Okay, right now it's more complicated, but they see other countries, they see the life of other people in the West, and you can defend something, forever. It's going to collapse. I think they're completely aware of that. And also, one needs to mention that most of the most of the electorate of our ruling party are generally older people who are used to older times and this conservative consensus in social life.
And I also think that it's like on cultural level and educational level, sometimes you still see a lot of patriarchal thoughts in education, in daily life. And I think that there's still a difference between bigger cities when the women are more educated and they have easier access to different organizations and so on, and in the places where the access is worse and it's still like a lot of with church influence and in traditional patriarchal model of the society, it's very often like a class issue as well, not only, you know, this that by official meaning we have this like equal payments and so on, but sometimes it's just the thing that we see in the bigger cities, and in smaller towns the situation is not that progressive, and the progress is much smaller and slower.
Really does seem to me like you could look at Poland in the same way, and I know you guys are very sort of always up on what's happening in the United States, and a lot of people, I guess, watching from the US, that in the American context, you do have like a red Poland, not red states and blue states, because we don't have states here, but I think you have to some degree a red Poland and a blue Poland, and the blue Poland are in big cities, and the blue Poland is probably going to be less religious, in the sense of less involved with the Catholic Church, and the more rural areas are going to be, the church will have a bigger influence on people's lives, and those areas also tend to be geographically, I guess, to the east of Poland. You can look, I think what's always amazing to me is when you look at this map of Poland and you see from the partitions, and you see the part of Poland that was Russian until 1918 is still voting one way, and the part that was partitioned for the other two is voting. The line is still looks like you know, like a similar line, which is always interesting to me, because you think, oh my God, communism changed so much and all of this in Poland. But then you think, wait, 45 years of communism, and afterwards, politically, things are still feeling the effects of what it was like from the 18th century, you know, until the end of World War I. But my question about the church is because clearly the church influence here in Poland is massive. And although Poland is becoming, as is the rest of Europe, more secular, Poland is becoming more secular more slowly than the rest of Europe. So countries like Germany and France, church attendance is something like 10%, and Poland is still much higher than that. So my question is, will the church change, and will a potential change in the church help move Polish society to where it seems to be going in terms of these, where young people and people in the cities are trying to bring it, or will it have to make these changes despite the church in Poland?
I believe that these changes will have to be done despite the church, and I'm also very for this solution, because we should finally completely cut the church out of the public discourse, because I think the influence of the Catholic Church on our public discourse is too big, and including the scandals, the pedophilia scandals, and the problems within the church, I think it has no moral, against what our Vice Prime Minister is saying, it has no moral grounds for being this main power behind the, I don't know, national ideology, the politics, and so on and so on. And I think it's inevitable as well, because as you said, Poland is becoming more secular slower than countries in the West. But when you compare young generations, our young generations are becoming, I think there were some sociology research, there was some research made by sociologists, and our youth is becoming one of the most secular groups most quickly among young people in Europe. So I think it's inevitable, and the church will have to face it if they change and allow this process to continue and find their way to be important for Poles, but in a lesser degree than now. Well, I think it would be good for them and for the people who attend church, for whom the church is important. But if they do not want to change, and so far our hierarchs are very much against any change at all, I think the changes will happen despite them.
Right, and also like there's this new generation who already doesn't remember that the church helped to fight the communism in Poland, because that's the whole heritage and the strong position of the Catholic Church, is that you know, this wasn't like cut and separated after 1989, and the whole narrative is still that, oh, this was the strength that helped to fight and end the communism in Poland, and Pope John Paul II and so on. And the generation who's like a bit younger than us, they don't already remember John Paul II, and they're not aware of the influence of the Catholic Church. They see the scandals, they hear about it. And I know from the some of the statistics recently that really less and less young people attend religion classes at school. They totally skip it, and so this shows that that change is coming slowly, slower than in other countries, but I think it won't be reversed. It's going to one direction.
So what is the effect of what this current situation, people out in the streets? Is going to be a huge march in Warsaw. I understand that people are supposed to all go to Warsaw tomorrow. There's going to be a massive demonstration. I'm sure the city will be shut down. But, you know, to a smaller degree, we've seen this before, and we saw this before previous to the recent elections. And yet, with all of the people outraged in the street, peace won. Okay, it wasn't a huge victory, but they still, you know, they still won. So is there going to be a lasting effect of what's happening right now? Even if it's not getting the bill overturned, what is it? Is the lasting effect going to be people are just going to stay in the streets and this country's going to be shut down until there's some change? Or will it be that this will sort of maybe die down a little bit and then people will just be energized and the next election make some sort of change? How do you see this? How do you guys see this going forward from now?
It's a difficult question, really. I mean, it's because I wish that, you know, there's going to be a revolution and change the whole thing and, you know, change the system and change what's going on. But I'm aware that it's not maybe that easy to fulfill. However, when I see so many young people protesting, that didn't happen in the previous protests, because previous protests were about, for younger generations, some judges and so on. And this one is really up to something, and I think it's great energy with the young generation. So I hope that if there won't be elections sooner, at least in 3 years, these people and their right to vote will change the situation in this country and the political strength in Poland, and move it more to the left side.
I believe, I mean, I agree totally. I would like everything to change now, but well, we'll see if it happens. I think the change in mentality and approach towards conservative values is inevitable. The younger generation, just like Anna said, are completely different than we are, or our parents or grandparents are. What is also, I think, important is that when you see these protests right now, lots of very young people, and also lots of boys, young men. Because the first so-called black marches, women's marches, were generally mostly women. And now you can see lots of young men being aware of the fact that this law is also will be part of their lives and will influence their decisions in lives. Yeah. You couldn't see that a few years ago.
Right, and I also think it's the first protest I've seen with such a strong language.
Yes.
Yeah. And people are cursing on the street and they don't mind. And like, you know, professors of linguistics saying that it's fine. The situation says that, you know, that the reality and the cause we are fighting for, you know, you can absolutely use this language. And I think it's the first protest where people are so angry. There is a lot of emotions, and this kind of rage, it didn't happen in the previous protests couple years back.
I agree with you. There was a very different energy when we went over last night about, I don't know, 8 o'clock or something. No, 7 o'clock. We rode our bikes over, and, you know, down Pilsudskiego, even before you got anywhere near the museum, it was just packed and tons of people. I was like, oh my God, I had no idea that it was this scale. You know, the cynical part of me, because there's always going to be a little cynical part of me, thought, you know, that all the restaurants and pubs and everything is closed. And if you're a young person and you want to do something tonight in Krakow, the only thing you can do, right? The only thing that there was to do is go to the protest.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I think that's true all over Poland in terms of that. So I hope that it's not just, you know, I of course, not completely, but, you know, I wonder if the function of it is just that there's absolutely, you know, your options for going out at night are protest or sit at home watching Netflix.
That's fine. I mean, you go to the protest and you will learn something. You will hear the speeches. You will learn from other people. I also participated in a protest in a small town in Niepołomice, a town of like 13,000 people, and there were 300 people on the street protesting. So this is very heartwarming, really, and touching and amazing. And okay, maybe for few of them it was the way to spend an evening, but for most of them it was really that for the first time they got the courage to speak up, to use their voice, because that's something that's happening all over the country, and they haven't had this courage before.
And I would also like to add here that you're absolutely right, and I'm cynical as well, and I agree with you. But there's a nice part of this cynicism, I think, because yesterday we were coming back from the protest, me and my friends. All of us are in the late 30s, in the beginning of the 40s, so we're definitely not the main generation. We are a minority in these protests. And one of my friends mentioned, and I think it's a very important and interesting idea, is that the pandemics kind of made this process possible. Because in March, when we were in lockdown, the young people were completely shut from the outer world. They have their classes online. They couldn't meet their friends. How long can you watch Netflix? And I think, in a way, this interest in what is their political situation, what is their future as young people, and also I think the depression that comes out of being in lockdown, I think also enforced this, that right now they're gathering. Okay, you're right, the pubs are closed, but I think this is also the effect of the pandemics, that suddenly you realize that the government has influence on your life, like in every aspect of your life. And perhaps before the pandemics, you could just go to bars and watch Netflix and have fun with your friends and go to classes and not pay attention to it. But right now, it's impossible to claim that you don't care. And you could see it in your everyday life.
No, absolutely. It was a different, these marches, not only the numbers, but you felt a different energy there and different language. And absolutely, it was clear right away that was the case. And I hope, as you both do, that it will lead to some lasting change in Polish society. But so thank you for that. I feel like I learned a lot about the situation that I didn't know, and I'm sure people watching did as well. I have to ask you my closing questions that for my own particular personal research. Are you guys on Team Latka or Team Hamantash?
Latka.
Oh my God, that's a very difficult question. I can't.
What's difficult about that, Ishbel? Latka.
That's a difficult question, Ishbel.
Okay, I would probably, with my heart, I would go with Hamantash, but since everybody in Poland, we also eat latkes. It's like a home meal, that your grandma cooks.
What about with your stomach? What does your stomach say?
My stomach? if I have a feeling for something that's really cool, I would go for Hamantash. But if I know that it has if I want to be full and I want to be happy, I think it's Latkes.
I'll take it. And of course, very important question for me that I always ask everyone. And Ishbel, you shouldn't have trouble with this considering your film background. What are, from each of you, what are your 3 favorite films?
The Shining, Godfather, but I think right now I'm leaning closer to the second part, not the first part. The older I get, the more I am with the second part. And Leviathan, the Russian film from a few years ago.
Solid. Guls?
I always have a problem with answering this question when someone asks me. I know I worked with you and I shouldn't have one.
You should know all my questions already.
Please go.
Because and I will put high on my list the new film about the Chicago trial, the 7th Chicago trial.
Chicago 7, okay.
Chicago 7, that goes really really high on my list. And I remember also another film that really influenced me, the Purple Violin. I don't know if you ever
I saw it.
What's it called?
Watched the Purple Violin.
Purple Violin. No, I don't know. I have to check it out.
Yes,
Purple
It's the one with the violin track traveling through ages, and yeah, I saw it. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And one more.
And one more. Sorry, Jonathan, it's not Godfather.
Ishbel already said, answer Godfather. I'm over the moon. I'm very happy.
Right. I know it might sound silly, but I really like the Avengers series. Marvel fan.
It doesn't sound silly at all for somebody who has.
No, you put some very serious titles, and I just like Avengers.
Listen,
I hope there are some Avengers fans as well.
Considering I have Dirty Dancing up there on my favorites, then I can't criticize any.
And every Christmas I'm watching Love Actually. Every Christmas.
Oh.
You guys, thank you so much for spending the time, and we're in touch. Thank you for all that you do, and hopefully you guys, you give me optimism about what will happen. And I think that the world is in, the Polish society is not, I wouldn't say it's in good shape, but I'll say I feel that it's going at least in the right direction. So thank you for helping push it in the right direction, and for all that you do for the Jewish community and for Kol Isha. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, and see you on the streets.
Stay safe. See you on the streets.
See you on the streets. Bye.
Bye.
Stay safe, everybody.